Hello, welcome to Chapter 17 for Business Math called Services. This is Lesson 17.6, Professional Services. As always, make sure you're looking through the textbook, pay attention to the vocabulary and the concepts it's introducing to you, look through the examples, pay attention to not just how do you complete the problem, but why. What are you actually calculating? So why are you multiplying? Why are you adding? Why are you subtracting? What are you actually doing? That will help you as you move through the chapter number 1, to be able to apply it throughout different sections because you'll understand the what. So the how kind of comes a little bit easier then. And also when we get to the end of the worksheets here and we have the algebra problems, which are kind of a little bit more application problems, we have to know what we were doing so that we know how to complete that or how to find missing pieces. All right, so just pay attention to that bit instead of just looking for the how. All right, a little lecture there. All right, a company may hire professional consultants to advise the business on a particular project. The method of determining each consultant's fee may vary. Some consultants charge a flat fee, some charge a percentage of the cost of the project, and some charge by the hour. The formula is total cost equals sum of consultants' fees. That's a very, complicated formula there. They're not telling you how to calculate this. That's really not a useful formula at all. So again, chapter will walk you through how to do a couple of these different types of problems. So it's definitely important to pay attention there. Close. Hopefully that hasn't been there the whole time. All right. So we're going to go ahead and look at this table. We'll look at number 1 here, and we'll look at number 3 because they get calculated in 2 different ways. So we have an architect, and his fee structure is 8% of the project cost. And the information we're given is either the total cost of the project or the hours worked. So it depends on if that person is being paid by percentage of the total cost or hourly. So number 1, he's getting a piece of it. So if he gets 8% of the total project cost, and then they tell us $925,000, $925,000. Sorry, I forgot the word there. The only thing they kind of left out is project cost. So this is the project cost. We're going to multiply by 8%. And that will tell us what the fee is here. Okay, so not a crazy calculation there. It does end up being quite a bit of money. So it is going to be a big number because 8% of 925,000 is still quite a bit. And make sure when you're multiplying 8%, you move the decimal. Don't multiply by 8. We don't want to know what 8 times $925,000 is. That's going to be a big number. We want 8%. So move it over 2 times, and then you don't need the percent sign anymore once you do that. So when you multiply, it's 925,000 times, and there'll be a 0 in here, 0.08. And that'll tell you the total fee that this architect gets paid. If we look at number 3, so it's the contractor, and they get $19.25 per hour, and there's 25 hours worked. So we simply just multiply the 2 numbers. And really, you can kind of think of that same thing here. You're kind of multiplying each one of these pieces, and that'll give you your total for each one of these. They're just giving you some extra words in here, so obviously you're not multiplying the words, but so 1925 times 25 hours, and that will tell you how much you're going to pay the contractor here. So far, not too complicated, hopefully. Kind of simple calculations. You just need to think about how they're being paid. So very, very similar to what you're doing in the next pieces. We just need to make sure we're picking out the important information in the word problems because there's definitely more information now that we're being given these sentences. So Riverview High School hired an in-service training specialist to conduct workshops for all of its science teachers. The specialist charged a flat fee of $300 per day. The workshops lasted 2.5 days. What was the total cost of the specialist services? Okay, well, they charged $300 per day, and they worked for 2.5 days. So 2, and instead of writing half, I'm going to write 0.5 because it means half. A little easier to type in your calculator there. And that'll tell you how much they charged. We just have to multiply these 2 amounts. So this is multiplication, this is a decimal. Okay, want to make sure you understand the difference between those 2. So next one, we have Connor and Hedwig, an insurance firm plans to issue $58,000 in bonds to pay for an extensive expansion. A broker will sell the bonds for a fee of 2.25% of the 58, I think I said 58,000, 58 million face value of the bonds. What will the broker service fee services cost the firm? So this is a percentage of the total. Same thing we did in this first one. We're just going to take our total, 58 million, and we're going to multiply by 2.25%. 2.25%. Make sure, again, move that dang decimal when you multiply. Do not multiply by 2.25. It's 2.25%. So we move the decimal 2 times and we get rid of the percent sign. So make sure you're multiplying by the correct number there. I have seen that quite a few times, even recently when I've been grading these, that students are forgetting to move the percentage or the decimal and the percentages. All right. So multiply these two and you'll get your answer for number 6. Number 6. I'm jumping to number 7 already here. Maxwell's, a discount store, wants to change its store's image. Sorry, it's a little blurry. It hired Century Interiors to redecorate the store. Century charges $3,500 plus $56 per hour for each of the 3 designers. So I'm going to underline this. So for each of the 3 designers assigned to the project. It takes Century designers 38 hours each to complete the design. How much does the project cost? So this one's a little different because now we have to take into account a flat fee of $3,500. So no matter what, they're going to charge $3,500 plus $56 per hour for each of the 3 designers. And it took them 38 hours each. So $56 per designer per hour. So per means, depending on how it's being used, it can be multiplication or division. In this case, it means we're multiplying. So, or each can also mean multiplication. So $56 for 3 workers for 38 hours each. So we have to multiply all this before we add it to $3,500. And that'll tell us how much they're getting in hourly cost plus the flat fee of the $3,500. So we just have to multiply and then add, and that will tell us our total cost here. All right, so let's look at the last page. And let's see. So your company has purchased prime real estate in the financial district. You hire an attorney to handle the legal transactions. You were charged $115 per hour plus $6,500 fee. The attorney devoted 49 hours to the project. How much did your company pay for these legal services? All right, so very similar to the last one, except we have one lawyer and they get $115 per hour and they spent 49 hours. So we don't have to do the extra calculation. On the last one, we had to multiply by the 3 designers because there was 3 of them. This case, there's only one lawyer, so we don't have to do an extra number there. So only $115 times hours. The only time you have 3 numbers being multiplied is if there's more than one person. So remember number 7, there were 3 designers, which is why we had to multiply by 3 also. In this case, you could show that there's one lawyer by multiplying by 1, but you don't really need to. Multiplying by 1 doesn't change the answer. It stays the same. So there's no real reason to put that on there. So you do need to multiply these together, and then you have to add your $6,500. Okay, and that'll tell you how much you paid here. All right. Save Rita, I think that's an interesting name, has installed her laser readers at all its checkout stations in its 5 stores. Save Rita hired Saranda Moore to consult on the equipment and its installation. Moore charges 9.5% of the total cost of the equipment and installation. Rita hired Don Engel to instruct its employees on the use of the equipment. So Engel conducted a 4-hour session at each store. Engel charged $68 per hour. The cost of the equipment and installation totaled $519,480. What was the total cost for professional services? So we have 2 different people here and they're charging differently. So we're doing both calculations in this one. The person that she hired for consulting on the equipment charges 9.5% of the total cost. And the total cost was given to us at the end of the problem here. So for more, we have 9.5% times our total cost. And that'll give us her charge. And then for Engel, he's the one who did the actual training, and he conducted 4-hour sessions at each store. And remember, they told us up here 5 stores. So there's a lot of little hidden information in here. So he did 4-hour sessions for 5 stores. So that's 20 hours total, right? Times 68, because he gets $68 for every hour. And that'll tell you how much Engel charged her for the hourly training. So we just need to make sure we add these two pieces together in order to get the total. So you just have to pay attention to the wording there, and there's a lot going on in the problem. So you have to pay attention. What is it that I need? And if you'd forgotten, it's 4 hours for each store, and you might have forgotten to go back and think about, oh, how many stores were there? So these are the pieces that we need to try to, as we're reading, and we might need to read the problem more than once to get all this information in our brains, okay? Because sometimes there's a little too much information the first time you read it. But if you read it again, you'll catch a little bit more information. If you read it a third time, you actually catch quite a bit more information. So get in the habit of trying to read the problems more than once, especially these longer ones with a lot of information in them. All right, number 10. Let's look at this algebra one. Maria Gonzalez, AIA, just completed a major redesign of the city center mall that cost $750,000 to complete. Miss Gonzalez charges $112.50 per hour plus 6% of the total cost of the project. If her charge for this redesign was $76,500, how many hours did she work on this project? All right, so with this one, we have a total cost, and that's going to equal, she gets a percentage of, and instead of cost, I'm going to write charge, total charge, because she gets a percentage of the cost of the project, plus she gets $112. So I'll kind of keep it going as the writing this out, plus the hourly rate. So she gets both charges here. She's doing both. And it told us this is how much she charged. So I can fill this in. 76,500 equals her percentage was, where was it? I saw it in here, 6% of the total cost of the project. And it told us the project cost, and remember that's another one of those keywords too, of, sometimes per, depending on how it's used, and then each, these mean multiplication. So let's see, we have 750,000. So this is the total cost of the build. So she gets 6% of that plus her hourly rate, and they told us she gets $112.50 per hour. We don't know her hours, right? And in fact, I'm going to make it a capital H to make it very apparent that it is a variable, because how many hours did she work? I don't know. We need to find that. That's what we're being asked to find. So by filling this in and kind of thinking through it and saying, okay, I have a total charge and she charges this much for percentage and she gets an hourly rate. How do I fill in these pieces? We have to think about how to logically fill in these pieces, because they didn't give us a formula at the beginning of this one. It's just the total. How did they even phrase it? I'm trying to remember on the first worksheet. Sum of consultants' fees. So just as the sum of the consultants' fees. So sum meaning add, we're just adding all of their fees together. So it's whatever fees they're charging, and you put them together. So if they're doing percentage and hourly, we have to calculate those and add them together. So this one, we couldn't just use the calculation or the formula that gave us the beginning of the section. We have to think about this one, how to put it together. So now that we have these pieces here, we can start multiplying and simplifying. And I'm only going to do a couple more calculations, and I'm going to let you guys finish it off. So we have 6% of $750,000, which is $45,000. So she gets $45,000 just from her 6% fee, plus $112.50 H. And I don't. This is multiplication when you squish them together, so I don't need to have the little dot there. I put it here just to kind of make it a point that I was multiplying. So now we have a much more basic equation. So we want to, if she's charging this much and we want to know her hourly rate, well, we need to subtract how much she's charging, right? This is PEMDAS. We're going backwards on PEMDAS. Normally we do parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That's for simplifying. That's what we did up here. We multiplied. We can't really do anything else because one is a number, or one is a constant, and one has a variable. You can't add those together. They're not like terms. So we've gotten to the end of PEMDAS. We've simplified as far as we can go. Now we can go backwards on PEMDAS. And we have to do addition and subtraction first. This is the solving portion. So we want to look at what's being added and subtracted on the same side as the variable. I have a lot of students who automatically grab this number here because it's positive 112.5. That's being multiplied by H. It is positive. It's not being added. It's positive. The $4,500 is being added because it's not necessarily by itself, but it doesn't have a variable. So that's the part that's being added. This is being multiplied. We just don't have the little dot there to show multiplication. So we want to move the 4,500 first. And whenever we're moving things from side to side of the equal sign, we're undoing the math. So if it's positive 4,500, I want to subtract it. I'm undoing it. I'm not adding it to the side anymore. I'm subtracting it so that I can move it to the other side of the equation here. So then we'll have a total. Once you subtract these two, equals any number minus itself is going to cancel out. It's going to become 0. And we'll bring 112.50 H down here. Scooch down just a little bit so we can kind of finish this discussion. So now that we have a number equaling 112.50 H, we only have one last thing happening to H, and that's this multiplication. So just like here, it was addition, and we undid it with subtraction. This is multiplication. We're going to undo it with division. So same darn thing. We're just going to divide on both sides here. Okay. And on this side, any number divided by itself doesn't become 0. It becomes 1. All right. So we don't want it to become 0 because then 0 times H would be 0 and H would disappear. We don't want H to disappear. We definitely want H to stay there because at the end here, we want to have H equals, we want to know how many hours she worked. So once you do the subtraction and you fill this box in, all we have to do is divide by her hourly rate, because with this one, once we subtract the 4,500 or 45,000, sorry, that's the fee, the 6% fee that she charged. Whatever's left over of her total fee, which we get when we subtract here, that's the amount she charged for her hours, which is why we're dividing by the number of hours. That will tell us how many hours she actually charged. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let you guys finish that off. So make sure you finish this one. You have a calculation to do here, and then you have to divide to get your final answer to know how many hours she worked. All right, well, I hope that helped. That finished off chapter 17, and I will see you in chapter 18.